Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Carl from Planet 40k, and today we're going to be carrying on with our Necron reviews. So before we begin, I just wanted to plug our Patreon service. It's still fairly new and we'd love it if you can join us and help support the channel. We're offering exclusive monthly benefits for our patrons, so if that's something you're into, links in the description and I'll see you there. So the next unit we're going to be covering is the Psychomancer. This is another new HQ character option within the Codex. He comes in at 4 power level, and if you're playing points, his base cost is 70 points, so it's a tad cheaper than the Technomancer. So his base stats are as follows: movement 5 inch, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 4, wounds 4, attacks 1, leadership 10 and a 4+ save. So unlike the Technomancer, he actually comes with the keyword fly, although he's only got a 5-inch movement. So moving into the built-in ability, so he's got the following. He's got living metal, command protocols, dynastic advisors, the Harbinger of despair, and finally the nightmare shroud. So let's talk about those. Living metal is the same as it previously was in the old codex, which is where you regain 1 lost wound at the start of the turn. Command protocols is where if your army has a noble as its warlord, you gain access to command protocols. So before the game you have 6 command protocols and you secretly select one of them for each battle round. So each battle round you then reveal your command protocol to your opponents, and within the command protocol there are 2 choices called directives. You then select one of them to use for that battle round. Then units need to be within 6 inch of any Necron character to be able to benefit from the directive. So pretty much all units in the Codex have this ability except for the Catan shards. The next ability, Dynastic Advisors. So this is simply where if your army is battle forged, then each cryptek in your detachment that includes a noble within the detachment, you can have a second cryptek within that detachment and it won't take up a battlefield role spot. So without this you'd be struggling to fit all these nobles and crypteks within the detachment. So now this allows you to be able to play your patrol detachments and your battalion detachments without the worry of overfilling your HQ spots. The next ability, Harbinger of Despair, which is unique to the Psychomancer. So this is done in your morale phase. Select one enemy unit within 12 inch of the Psychomancer and roll 3 dice. If the result is greater than the enemy unit's leadership, then you get to apply a negative effect from the list below, and it lasts until your next morale phase. So in the list you've got 4 choices. Option 1, the selected unit cannot perform actions, and if it is doing a current action it instantly fails. Option 2, the selected enemy unit loses objectives secured. Option 3, you half the advance and charge rolls of that selected enemy unit. And option 4, the selected enemy unit cannot fire Overwatch or use the set to defend rule. Furthermore, the unit is not eligible to fight in the fight phase until all other units have done so. So all these negative effects are not too bad, but the fact that you have options means you can be quite versatile with your Psychomancer to debuff whatever you think is the worst threat at the time. So for example, if you're playing Tau, you can stop that Overwatch. Or if there's a large squad of troops contesting an objective, you can take away their objective secured rule, or to slow down a combat unit that's about to charge you in the next turn. He definitely becomes quite a useful character, although there's a slight issue with the range only being 12 inch, so you've got to be pretty close to the enemy. So the final ability here, the Nightmare Shroud, which is a 6 inch aura ability that subtracts 1 from your enemy's leadership characteristic, and it also applies a -1 to the combat attrition test as well. So this ability stacks with the Harbinger of Despair, as you need 3 dice to beat your enemy's leadership, and if they're within 6 inches, then you've already got a -1 modifier right there. Okay, so going into weapons, the Psychomancers carry an Abyssal Lance, which is both shooting and melee. The shooting variant is 18 inch, assault 3, strength 4, AP -3 and single damage. So the weapon's quite similar to the Staff of Light that's carried by the Technomancer. He's also got a ballistic skill of 3+, so on average you're going to be scoring 2 hits. But the AP modifier is slightly better on this weapon, so you're probably still going to peel off only 1 wound anyway. The melee side of the weapon is strength user, so strength 4, then it's also again -3 AP and single damage. So in essence it's basically a stronger version of the Staff of Light. The only drawback here is there's no relic to upgrade this weapon, whereas the Staff of Light can be upgraded to a Voltec staff. So that's his basic stats and abilities. Now we can go over what sort of things you can put on him. So we did do a Cryptek Arcana video already that covers all the Arcanas. I'll put a little link in the corner if you've not seen that. So the one Arcana that is linked to the Psychomancer is called the 8 of Vindicator, which at the end of the movement phase, you select an enemy unit within 18 inch of the bearer, excluding vehicles, and if you can roll equal to or greater than their leadership with 3 dice, then they suffer D3 mortal wounds. So this synergizes well with your aura ability to then -1 to their leadership again, and on average you should be passing this roll most of the time anyway. So it's quite similar to Smite in a way, just sort of a Necron version. So this Arcana costs you 25 points or an additional power level if you're playing power level. So moving on to the relics, I always like to get the Veil of Darkness within the list somewhere, so this is a valid option here. You can teleport a group of Lich Guard in, and while you're there dish out those mortal wounds as we spoke about with the Arcana. Or you can use the Hyper Material Ablator Arcana to give your Lich Guard a +2 save because it gives them light cover. Next I thought I'd quickly again mention the Crypto Thralls. We covered them in the Indominus box set and they're worth a mention again. So if you weren't aware of this unit and what they do, they're effectively bodyguards for your Cryptex. They're 40 points, you get 2 of them in a unit, and if they're within 3 inches of a Cryptek, then the Cryptek model cannot be targeted by any ranged weapons, and that includes anything that ignores the Lookout Sir rule, such as snipers and whatnot. So for only 40 points you're getting all that, plus if they're within range of a Cryptek they get a stats boost as well, so it makes them a nice little unit. And they don't even take up a slot in your detachment as long as you've got a Cryptek within it, which you obviously will. If you were to select a Psychomancer as your warlord, then I would suggest using the Thrall of the Silent King trait, which grants an additional 3 inch to all your aura abilities. So his Harbinger of Despair will have a range of 15 inch. Or you could opt for the Implacable Conqueror trait, which lets units within 6 reroll charges. So again, I'm thinking of your Lich Guards here if you did use that Veil of Darkness. Finally, I'll go over a stratagem that will work well with the Technomancer model. It's the one from the Epic Deed Stratagems list, which is called Resurrection Protocol. So you can use this on an infantry Cryptek model. When the model is destroyed, on a 4+, he stands back up and on D3 wounds remaining. This only costs 1 CP and it can't be blocked. So depending on how vital the model is in the current game, you can pop this stratagem when needed and it works in any phase. And what's good about it is it happens at the end of the phase, which if you use it, you're guaranteed to be alive until at least the next phase anyway. So in terms of Tactica for this model, I've actually had a few suggestions handed to me from our current subscribers, so I thought I'd share them with you in this video. So first, this one's from Jar Assist Ick, and they came up with the following. So you basically stick a Veil of Darkness relic on the Psychomancer and also give him the Dimensional Sanctum Arcana, which allows your Cryptek to deep strike. Then you bring in a large squad of Flay ones, because they've also got the deep strike ability. So you deep strike both the flayed ones and the Cryptek 9 inches away from an enemy that's holding an objective. Now the reason they've chosen flayed ones, if an enemy unit is within 3 inches of flayed ones, it's a -2 modifier to their leadership. And this nicely stacks with the Psychomancer's ability, which also -1 from their leadership. So now the enemy unit will be looking at a -3 leadership modifier. So next you obviously use your Psychomancer's Harbinger of Despair, where you need to beat their leadership with 3 dice, and you should be doing this almost every time with just 3 dice with a -3 modifier. So you're extremely likely to pass this. And then you simply remove objectives secured from the unit, just in case your Flay ones don't actually get into combat or don't deal with the unit. So once the unit has been dealt with, so this is where you use your Veil of Darkness to move on to another objective where your enemy's holding on to it. And then you take your Cryptek and the flayed ones, of course, with it. Or you just take it to another duty target within the game. So it's going to remove a lot of points from your opponent if you keep clearing them off objectives. Another one I'd like to mention is from Tamas Tankovitz. And their idea was to give the Psychomancer the Aether Vindicator Arcana. You then pair this up with a unit of 10 death marks. And these death marks can obviously target enemy characters with their disintegrators, because they ignore the Lookout Sir rule. And the Aether Vindicator Arcana can also target characters. It's not a shooting attack in the shooting phase, so it can actually target characters. So what you've basically created here is an assassination sort of tactic where you've got your Psychomancer and the death marks going after certain characters in the game. It can be quite expensive though, it'll cost you about 275 points. Although you've got to bear in mind, death marks are a core unit, so there's all sorts of little shenanigans you can do with core units now. So it's a nice little tactic you can use if you really want to go for the assassinations on the secondary objectives. So overall, this model is more of a debuffing character. It really does mess with your opponent's rules and tactics, especially with the Harbinger of Despair. But in order to have any sort of damage output, it needs that Aether Vindicator Arcana. And then you're talking about a 95 point model. So other than messing with your opponent, there's not much else he really does. although these debuffs can be game changing, but they're not really in your control until your opponent does something for you to react to. So I'm not really as keen on that one. So as for his other stats, he's only strength 4, toughness 4, there's no in-run save. So overall I think I'm going to go with a Planet 40k rating of 3.5 out of 5 for this unit. This rating will be compared to other Necron units within the Codex and not the entire 40k game, so please bear that in mind. Let me know in the comments what you would give the Psychomancer and why. What type of combos can you come up with? A lot of people do like this model, so you'll have to let me know why. Also, if you've got any combos for the other two Cryptex, the Chronomancer and the Plasmancer, let me know in the comments as well, because I'll probably be doing them in the next week. And if there's any good combos of note, I might be putting them in the next video. So as time goes on, we hopefully will have a more established Patreon service, and our future rating reviews will come from the Patreon community polls there. So if you want to get involved and have your say on the unit ratings, go check that out. Links in the description for our Patreon, where you've got exclusive Patreon benefits. Plus it massively builds the channel, so I really appreciate if you could just at least have a look there. We are going to be covering all the units in this codex, so if you don't want to miss any of those, please remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit that like button on the way out, and thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.